Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Hey, it is the Mark Thompson Show with Hal Rudnick. Good morning.
Good morning, Kim. Thank you for having me here. A big chair to fill, big shoes to fill, big hands to fill. I'm talking about I only have a little earbud, so my goodness. But I'm very excited to be here, Mark, wherever you are.
Mark in D.C., hanging out with his parents. We've got Albert here along for the ride as well. Hey, Albert. Hey, so a lot of guests today. We have, who do we have? We have,
we got Brian Copeland on.
Brian Copeland, that's right. You know what happened to me? I opened yesterday's page and I looked down and I'm like, that's not right. No. We have Brian Copeland. He'll be here. He's going to talk about his new book. It's called
author, playwright.
Yeah. The book called Outraged, and it's about, this is interesting, it's about a TV reporter, fictitious characters, and his girlfriend, who's a homicide detective in San Francisco, who are looking into a series of murders. So we'll talk to him about that, and that'll be fun. Yeah, so it's going to be a good show. Plus, it's a David Katz day, and we have a lot to talk about with a Trump trial and the Supreme Court going on.
We'll break it down. See if and we'll get David Katz's perspective on the fresh hells in the political sphere that we are living our glorious lives through.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court, what's going on there with the immunity and with the abortion case out of Idaho, plus the Trump trial. You know, that's like, I hate to say it.
Stop.
It is nonstop, and it's like it's also nonstop material for us. Even though I wish the country wasn't in this, predicament that we're in. So
absolutely, and it seems it's one new story after another. What year was it, Kim? When was it when the news cycle started going so quickly? Like, there's a huge story that's immediately replaced by another huge whopper of a story. It used to be like, take you back to the 80s when I was a kid. The Challenger exploded. Right. And that's all we talked about for like months, it seemed.
Yeah. It used to be we'd have a story that we'd talk about it for 3 or 4 days, right? Mm-hmm. Not anymore. Mm-hmm. Now it's like done, one and done.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's it. So
we'll dive in.
You're a new dad.
I am. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of bad news coming across our timelines. And, we always have, CNN or something on in the house or NPR. But to escape the sphere of topicality, just having my 8.5-month-old daughter, Eden, it is delightful. Yeah. You're able to just tune out, go for a walk, play. She has a little playroom that we set up for her, and it does the heart good, and it gives me new hope for the future. That hopefully there is a world left for her to grow up in.
Eden, that's such a pretty name. And so you know, there's nothing better to me than hearing a baby laugh.
Oh,
I just love it. You just sit around and try to make her giggle.
Yes. Oh, constantly. I'm among other things, I'm a host, writer, and comedian. So this is a captive audience with always trying. If I can elicit a smile or a laugh, it's the best. But, there's always the flip side. She does, she will cry, but we're getting better at managing that. We went away for a few days. We got out of Los Angeles, and several times that we've been out and about with the baby, it's like the first day, it's like, oh, why did we do this? This is a huge mistake. We should have stayed home. But we've gotten better at that. And just my wife is just master at navigating this world. And she realized, oh, we should get in the car and drive when it's her nap time. So she was napping for much of our car ride, and it was a dream. And you encounter these situations, you dive in, and then you get better at it as you go along. So learning as we go.
We're just at the point now where we don't have to bring all the stuff. You talk about taking a car trip with a baby, and I just think about all the bags and the things, the strollers, the items that have to go into the car. Yeah.
Are you a parent, Kim?
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old son who's in 4th grade, and I have a brand new freshman in high school who's 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
So I've been where you are,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
It I don't want to say it gets easier. It gets easier and harder in different ways. It's really interesting. How you at first you have that, oh my gosh, how much does this baby eat? Will this ever end? And then you get to this cool point, and then other stuff starts happening. It's this cycle that, there's always something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Murphy Rowan says, start baby sign language as soon as you can. Yeah. Dada, mama, more. Yeah. We've been incorporating that. And I'm excited about that. So let me ask you a question about your parenting stuff, because we're talking about the news cycle, we're talking about the present day society, the world that we live in. How do you handle screen time with your kids?
Oh, screen time. So when my kids were infants and didn't know any better, like we would watch all the kinds of adult movies or whatever. But the minute they started becoming aware, their eyes were flipped away from screens. As far as screen time now, most school districts have iPads in the classroom. There are TVs in the classroom, but I think that's the world we live in. And there are some parents that will say, we don't want screen time at all for our kids. But I feel like they need to know things. They need to know how to use technology in education, in everyday life. So I'm not going to shy away from it, but I'm also not going to let them just zone out and, have that. So I have a no video game policy during the school week, only on the weekends.
Good for
and
you.
We don't really turn the TV on very much. Sometimes they'll watch Netflix or they'll Disney Plus on, but it's really rare. So usually during the week, it's only for education, whatever they have to do with their homework.
Very nice. And they're respectful of that? Do they rebel?
Yeah. Except I will say that there's this thing called, you'll find all these things out, Hal. There's this movement called Wait Till 8, where a lot of people don't buy their child a phone until 8th grade. And so, And so I did get my daughter a phone. She does have a phone. So I will say that. So I would say she's on the phone a lot, talking to friends and doing all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. My wife and I have been talking about a book by this author. I think his last name is Haidt, Haigt. And he talks about the deleterious effect on the internet and social media on kids, and just creating this anxiety where there normally wouldn't be any. And because you can't, if you take it with you and you're on it constantly, you can't unplug. You are not shutting it off. And he says 16 years of age is a good age to introduce that. And I'm like, okay, that seems to make sense, but that also seems like a freaking pipe dream that a kid is going to be able to wait that long and not throw a tantrum.
Well, you mean you're in charge, right? You're making the rules, but I just don't necessarily think 16 is realistic for that.
Yeah.
Because they're out and about. You want to know where they are. It gets to a point where you have to give them a little freedom. And it's actually nice for them to have a phone because you can track them and see right where they are. It's like
that's true.
Dad surveillance, right?
So Murphy says deleterious is a ding word. Thank you.
It is a ding word. It is absolutely a ding word. Well, congratulations on Eden. So glad to hear about everything going on with you. Let's talk a little bit about, and we'll talk about the indictments that came down yesterday for all the Trump allies, the Trump henchmen. When you talk about Arizona and
Trump
the fake
has
electors,
a better rogues gallery than the Batman villains. Rivals
really
the
does.
Joker, Penguin, and the whole gang.
Yeah, well, an Arizona grand jury handed up these indictments yesterday for Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, a cast of characters. I'm not sure why Trump wasn't included in all this.
Yeah, we'll have to ask David Katz
Yeah.
about that later.
Exactly. So we'll talk to David Katz about that. They did also do something in Arizona, which is good. They managed to get rid of this Civil War era abortion law, right? So that was a complete ban on abortion, except in the danger of the life of the mother. Now it's down to 15 weeks. So that's what's going on with that. We'll talk to him about that. Did you hear about this story in the United Nations? They had this resolution to prevent nuclear arms in space. It seems like a good idea,
Yeah.
I mean,
The Mark Thompson Show.
we already have enough trouble here on Earth. So do we really want to introduce nuclear weapons in space? So Russia says, wait a minute. We don't want to vote for this. We don't think we like this. It would have called on countries not to deploy weapons of mass destruction in outer space. And the folks from Russia called this nothing but
the option to have nuclear payload in space.
they
Listen.
vetoed it. Yeah. They called it a dirty spectacle. There he is. Look
Okay.
at him.
I am pro-Ukraine. I am anti-Putin. I am pro-Navalny. But on this, I think Russia might be right. Because, all right, we're using up the Earth. We're going to be, living on space stations and, giant ships in the future. And you're going to want to be able to fight intense, crazy wars in space. Reagan, didn't he start the Star Wars program?
Yeah.
So, listen, I'm on the side of Reagan and Putin on this. I'm probably conflating. I know. Strike that from the record. I am not on the side of Putin on anything. I do not like.
The U.S.
Listen, I am not turning the Mark Thompson Show into a pro.
No, we're not doing that. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, her name is Linda Thomas Greenfield. After the Russian veto, she said, today's veto begs the question. Why? Why? If you're following the rules, would you not support a resolution that reaffirms them? What could you possibly be hiding? And she's talking about the resolution that was already banned in 1967 under an international treaty. So she's now saying, what are you doing? You planning to send nukes into space, Russia? What's happening?
Well, yeah, Russia, they are early adopters. They are first to the party on a lot of stuff. Sputnik, the dog in space, space station Mir, and now nukes in space.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, like he wants all options on the table, including the nuclear option, not just here on Earth. But you know what? Maybe Putin has a bone to pick with Pluto.
Well, what they
maybe
say
he wants
is,
to eradicate Pluto.
What they say is that it didn't go far enough. That they want a ban on the placement of weapons of any kind in outer space, not just weapons of mass destruction. But you don't want that. And he says, the Russian guy, why don't you want the ban of all weapons in space then?
Oh, yeah, we're not the problem.
No.
Like, oh, yeah, I didn't see in the fine print, it didn't mention grenades. So
See?
Rewrite the thing.
Uh-huh.
List every weapon. No knives in space. No brass knuckles in space.
It's crazy. Yesterday, we had a ban on TikTok passed. I don't know. Are you a TikTok user?
Off and on.
Okay.
Yeah. And I use TikTok Lite, which is Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram Reels and Stories. I mean,
Sure.
that's enough for me. And also, it seems like everything on TikTok migrates over to Instagram.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like a good idea, but now our senator from California, her name is LaFonza Butler. She says,
Hmm.
uh-oh, so she voted for the ban. And then she went to President Biden and said, wait a minute, I just realized. She didn't say I just realized, but this is kind of how it plays out.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
if you ban TikTok, it means a lot of employees, workers in California and New York who are employed by ByteDance and work on behalf of TikTok will lose their jobs. And so she's saying before you sign the bill, consider that a lot of people are going to be out of work.
Wait, so are you talking about like employees that work for TikTok proper, or are you talking about influencers who make money? Like, are we talking about like Charlie D'Amelio or whoever? Which is she referring to? Do you
She
know,
says
or is it just all
consider
the
the
above?
She says consider the fate of thousands of US employees of TikTok. So they must work for TikTok. But that's a great point because I didn't think about all the people who make their money
Oh,
as
like I have friends
influencers
in the
making their
comedy
yeah.
world,
Yeah.
yeah, who do their comedy characters.
Hmm.
Like I have a friend named Katie. She does like a lot of food related content. Like she has a channel, I think it's called Katie Eats, and like she goes
Oh,
around and like tries different burgers and things,
sure.
and like she's gone viral. I have plenty of friends and buddies who do characters. All their
Um,
wacky, goofy characters on TikTok. We need a play. Instagram's still here. So as long as we have
right.
a place for the wacky, goofy characters,
Right.
for the choreographed dances, because one thing is for certain, Americans need their choreographed dances. There will be protests in the town square, choreographed,
Yeah.
well choreographed protests.
Mhm.
If we lose any venue for choreographed dances.
Well, she said some of the American TikTok workers are the ones that actually helped us understand why TikTok was a security threat in the first place. And so now they could be losing their jobs. So, yeah, kind of a bummer.
Interesting. I wonder, let's go behind the scenes. Let's pull back the curtain. Do you think
Mhm.
Zuckerberg has anything to do with this TikTok ban? Do you think
Hmm.
do you think behind closed doors, the American billionaires are like, let's get rid of this TikTok. It's
I
cramping
don't
my
think
style.
I don't think he'd be sad about it. No, because he
No.
owns Reels, right? Which is the competitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He owns Facebook and in turn Instagram.
Hmm.
Uh, and then, you know, Elon Musk wouldn't be mad at it either because TikTok is, probably, gets on a little bit of X's turf. I still hate calling it X.
I know.
I go back and forth whether or not to get off of that platform, but I'm still on it. It's
Hmm.
useful for certain things, but yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, Albert, did we tweet? We have to tweet every day. If we don't tweet, Mark's going to be upset. So hopefully you're tweeting.
I'm on it.
Yeah, okay, excellent. Thank you. So, show business, and we kind of got to talking right off the top, but I should say
Sure.
thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for supporting The Mark Thompson Show. Please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. That's where the Patreon and the PayPal links live. And to everyone who supports this show, you allow us to keep it going and keep doing it, and we're very grateful. The Mark Thompson
with your
Show.
iron rod.
Please click the like button and please subscribe if you haven't already as well. Again, themarkthompsonshow.com and then clicky the like and clicky the subscribe. I feel so much better now. I'm telling you.
Slam that like button.
Slam it
Subscribe.
down.
Smash it with your
Thank you.
iron rod.
Thank you, Randy Brunling, for fact checking us on some of this Zuckerberg stuff. He says Zuckerberg
Oh.
has nothing to do with, listen, and he asked if I'm trying to start conspiracy theories.
Oh.
To answer that question in a word, yes. I would like to start some unhinged conspiracy theories. Listen, Mark is not here. You have Hal Rudnick, the unhinged conspiracist in the chair. I am the liberal Alex Jones. I'm kidding. I am not.
No,
I'm sorry
you're
to even
not.
evoke that name.
Although you were talking conspiracy the last time you were on the show as well.
Conspiracy, it's fascinating. It's a source of comedy, but it's less a source of comedy because in the age post QAnon, etc. It's like, oh shoot, conspiracy just got dangerously real, and a lot of rubes got suckered in, and it's scary. Like, I have friends whose parents are like went deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But we can all agree on one thing, Kim.
And people
moon
that you
landing
thought were
was faked. Moon landing fake.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But these were people that we thought were normal, right? I mean, they seemed like they had everything okay going on, and then all of a sudden, what happened?
Absolutely, it's wild. There was a great docuseries on HBO, Into the Storm, I believe it was called, about the beginnings of QAnon on 4chan, and then on 4chan's disgusting cousin 8chan. If 4chan wasn't awful enough for you, and it wasn't racist enough and didn't have enough horrific images, then there's 8chan. And it basically uncovered that the people behind 4chan, the son of the guy who started it, was basically Q. He was basically Agent Zero in the whole QAnon thing.
Have you ever been on those websites, the 4chan?
I've been on 4chan. It's funny because like, I had some comedy friends who were like normal people, like, intelligent, with decent politics, not crazy fascists or anything like that, and who were like, oh yeah, there's funny stuff on there, but it also gets pretty dark. And I started going on there. I'm like, oh, and because 4chan, a lot of fads and memes online, like funny stuff that we kind of are just like, oh, that's normal, that's not too dark, or that's not so repugnant,
right?
Like they get born there. But the flip side is there's a lot of repugnant crap on there, and at a certain point I had to be like, I can't do it. I'm tapping out. I am not going to go visit 4chan anymore. So it was a brief period. It was probably in the mid 2000 teens that I was like, oh, well, let's see what this is all about. Oh, pretty funny, until it wasn't. And I'm like, oh, this is going to give me nightmares. I'm out of there.
I don't know why. I've never been inspired to go even look at it, but I know it's described as the dark underbelly of the internet.
Oh yeah, just the armpit of the internet, the a-hole of the internet. Yeah, it's and it lives up to that, because sometimes there's stuff like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's kind of funny. But then it's like, oh wow, I'm looking at just deeply offensive, like racist images and like autopsy photos.
No.
I'm let's go back to ESPN.com.
Yeah,
no, thank you. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Paris?
Oh, Je t'aime Paris. I've been to Paris a couple of times, and I was there for the. I was there for work. I used to do a lot of movie junkets and stuff, and I was there for the junket for I think it was Mission Impossible Fallout, with Tom Cruise, Henry Cavill, and so I did the junket, and the World Cup was going on at the time, and France was playing Czech Republic, I believe, and I watched the game in a cafe, and it was the most amazing experience, because France won, and then it was like it was like being in a movie. The Champs-Élysées filled with people leading up to the Arc de Triomphe, and I was out there in the sea of people, drunk off red wine, and having just. It was a memory that I will never forget.
Were you part of that movie, that Mission Impossible movie?
I was there doing the junket. I was interviewing everyone, and Henry Cavill. There was a little bit of a tempest in a teapot at the time, because he was in the Zack Snyder Justice League movie, which was a bit of a debacle in itself. And he had a mustache that he couldn't. This is sign language for mustache. For idiots like me, and so he had a mustache that he couldn't shave because he was doing Mission Impossible. But Superman does not have a mustache.
No, he doesn't.
Maybe he should. Like, I'd like to see Superman with like mutton chops, just different.
Superman with facial hair. I mean, if you're going to talk testosterone.
There you go.
Right
I
on.
mean, he'd need a kryptonite razor to shave
That's
that
right.
thing. So, uh, so there was a controversy that they had to CGI away the mustache, and he and we did this bit where I brought like a dozen fake mustaches that like came in a set, and he kept replacing the fake
Oh, that's
mustache
funny.
every time during the interview, and it was pretty delightful. He was a great sport and played along.
That's cool. I'm here with Hal Rudnick. Why reason I mention it is because
Yes.
this is the Moulin Rouge, and
What
apparently
happened?
the windmill blades fell off. They used to have a little windmill on there. The
Yeah.
blades of the windmill right on top of this famous dance hall fell off
Hmm.
overnight, damaging the facade of the building. You can see the front of it. Yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah, now
The
it's just Lawn Rouge that knocked
That's
off
right.
Moo.
The blades tore off the MOU of the sign. They're
What?
putting it back together. Nobody hurt, but they don't know why the windmill blades fell off. So the Moulin Rouge is in a little trouble.
Absolutely. Get Baz Luhrmann on the phone. We need
Yeah,
Moulin Rouge 2, rebuilding.
I guess
By the
so.
way, someone was asking if we're pre-recorded. No,
No.
we're not pre-recorded. No, we're not pre-recorded. No, we're not pre-recorded. Glitch, glitch. No, we're live. Yeah, we're flying without a net here.
Julie says Henry's the most handsome man in the world. Henry
Oh,
Cavill.
he's a damn
So,
good-looking guy.
yeah.
I got to bask in the glow of those chiseled features.
Murphy says someone I know in Paris marked himself safe from the Moulin Rouge wings this morning. So there you go.
Nice.
Now you know it's a real incident, right? When someone marks themselves safe from it. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
Let's
Sometimes that comes in handy to let you know that, like, okay, loved ones and people are safe because when various disasters, etc., happen. But then I like it when someone can use it for something just a little more lighthearted.
Well, we have to get to Brian Copeland, who's here to talk about his new book called Outraged. But first, let's do a little bit of news before we do that. What do you think?
I love it, Kim.
Okay.
I feel so lucky to be here with you navigating. Thank you for. I am a neophyte in the Mark Thompson world.
Oh,
Thank you,
well,
Mark, for letting me hang in, and thank you, Everett. Just the chat is awesome.
Yeah.
Going off. Love it. Love it.
All right. All right. It's news, Albert. Let's make it happen.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Former President Trump is back in a New York City courtroom for his criminal hush money trial. Jurors are again hearing testimony from former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker, who has explained this week how he protected Trump from negative stories leading up to the 2016 presidential election. Trump faces felony charges for falsifying business records to cover up payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about an alleged affair. The
You know,
Supreme. Oh, go ahead.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just say, Pecker, an unfortunate name to have on the playground.
I mean, can you imagine? It could be that his family had so much money that no one made fun of him, but I don't know. Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes. I
yeah.
mean, it's hard for me to get through a newscast without giggling every time I say it.
Yeah, and when he got on the stand, didn't he like say hi to Trump and his lawyers? Like,
I didn't hear
because
that.
oh yeah, like he literally greeted them. It was just a weird moment because they are like such good pals that go way back together. It's bizarre.
Weird. The Supreme Court is considering Donald Trump's claim that he has presidential immunity in his federal election subversion case. Trump's attorney arguing that prosecuting a president for official acts incompatible with the Constitution. The special counsel attorney arguing the Constitution doesn't grant a president absolute immunity. So
Just asinine. This goes back to like when it reminds me of when Trump said, "Oh, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and
right.
people would stay with." Like, no, certain things you shouldn't have immunity for, especially when it's subverting the democratic process.
You
Oh,
think?
now I'm getting fired up, Kim. You're getting me fired up.
All bets are off. Trump posted on Truth Social that a president should have complete immunity even when their actions cross a line. even then. So
no.
no.
Like, that's so ridiculous.
Is that what we
you know,
want? I mean, I don't think that's what we want.
I mean, certain things with it, like, okay, if Biden has like a little bit of a lead foot and he's driving, and let him out of the speeding ticket,
Little things
I could
are
go for
okay.
that. Yeah. All right. But Biden takes a pack of gum, doesn't pay for it. Let him shoplift. Also, maybe he forgot. But I would certain things. But yeah, election subversion and shooting someone on Fifth Avenue. No.
It's a hard pass. No.
Yeah.
Pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University are now facing a deadline to clear out of this encampment they've set up. So they have to leave in less than 24 hours, or university administrators say they're going to be forced to take action. The students want amnesty for any students who may have been arrested or suspended as a result of these protests. The president of Columbia University said she hopes discussions with students are successful and that calm can be restored to campus. And now, Hal, there are these encampments being set up and these protests from coast to coast. We were talking yesterday, it's even going on at Cal Poly Humboldt State up in the Redwoods here in California. So coast to coast, in even the smallest campuses.
Yeah, just a nightmare situation. A nightmare situation in Gaza, obviously, and on these campuses. And it's I am at such cross purposes in my own mind about what needs to happen. But I think a lot of it starts with Netanyahu. I really feel like he is not the man for this job, and Israel has, we do need a ceasefire, and the level of the human rights situation is horrific and heartbreaking. It's fresh heartbreak every day. So
it's true.
We need to speak out about it, but at the same time, we can't have the Jewish diaspora feeling in danger. Like people need to be able to separate, like these Jewish students. We need to be able to separate. Okay, Netanyahu who is proving to be an over-the-top monster versus innocent people who have little or nothing to do with this situation. It's just heartbreak all around.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Stocks are tanking after new economic data is showing a sharp, that's a new one, a sharp slowdown in growth. The new ding word. Gross domestic product rose by 1.6% in the first quarter against expectations of 2.4%. So we're not doing so hot. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has been down more than 450 points at times in today's session. The NASDAQ down over 200 points at times as well. So this new economic data not looking good at a time when President Biden needs economic data to shine, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's already, I mean, that's such a complicated situation because you see that, the economy, unemployment numbers are great. But then when where the rubber meets the road, the inflationary upticks, they still remain. Gas prices is still super high. Eggs are still pricier. And, we're just growing in certain ways and stagnant in other ways. Like if you look at the prices of things versus how much in the commiserate way people get paid, pay has not gone up enough to catch up with the prices of everything. Capitalism, unsustainable. What do you think, Kim?
I don't know. All right. I want to tell you this story too, because this is about Harvey Weinstein, the former Hollywood producer.
Yes, I heard about this. Of course, the biggest monster of the Me Too movement.
Right. He's having his conviction for sex crimes in New York overturned because the court found that the judge in his trial made an error in allowing women to testify about alleged sexual assaults committed by Weinstein that weren't part of those charges against him. So he was also convicted of sexual assault in Los Angeles. That conviction still stands. Now the New York situation, they have to have a new trial take place there. So that's a bit of a mess.
And I heard, it would be the same prosecutor. His name escapes me.
Bragg.
Bragg. Yes,
Mhm.
thank you, Kim. And it would be up to him. So and he's got a pretty full dance card right now. But sorry, they should, there are certain people that I think we can all agree should, I don't know if this is too harsh, should die in jail. He's one of them. I think the Bill Cosby, who got freed, certain people some people say, oh, the Me Too movement, the pendulum swung too far. But there are certain people who's I think we can all agree. And, it's complicated because, all right, you want the justice system to work. You don't want someone to be falsely imprisoned, but it's just this technicality. But did it unfairly sway the jurors? So, oh, damn you, justice system.
Yeah, I know.
But it's vexing. It's vexing, though, because Harvey Weinstein, just a monster who used his power and just manipulated and committed horrific crimes, using this power dynamic.
Yeah.
Awful.
You don't want to see somebody who's a complete creep walk away.
Yeah.
This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I don't know if you've tried it, but I'm telling you, if you haven't, Hal Rudnick, you really should. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, the best coffee Mark has ever tasted. I'm a tea drinker. I'll tell you, it's the best tea that I have ever consumed. I love an iced tea, so I'm trying the ginger mint tea this morning. So good. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. You get the exclusive Mark Thompson Show 10% off by entering Mark T all together, no spaces, at checkout under the discount code, and then you get your 10% discount. So it's a happy day all around. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
You know what? Maybe I could drink some Coachella Valley coffee and then go to Coachella and see all of these bands who more and more I've never heard of.
Because we're old now. That's why.
Yes. Hashtag old. Every year when the list of Coachella bands comes out, I'm like, okay, there's some names in big print. Yeah, of course, I know who Doja Cat is, or Tyler the Creator, and then you keep going, and it's like, wow, I never heard of Three Hole Punch or whatever the name of
who all these people are.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Brian Copeland is next. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim McAllister with Hal Rudnick hanging out for the day. Mark in D.C. visiting his parents. And so I'm so excited. This next guest on The Mark Thompson Show, former KGO talk show host, first of all, the writer and performer of one-man plays, which are incredible, performing in San Francisco and other places. We'll talk to him about that. Author, and now novelist as well. I mean, his list of accomplishments doesn't end. He's our friend Brian Copeland, everybody. Hey, Brian.
Hey, it's not that it doesn't end. It's just I can't hold a job. That's basically what
Maybe it's just you're having a...
Brian, absolute pleasure.
Do you guys know each other? Because you kind of run in comedy circles together.
No, I don't believe we have met.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I feel like I'm missing out. And how often do you get down to the Southland, down in Los Angeles?
Performing mainly, it's just doing solo shows. And I actually haven't been down there. There's a theater across the street from, I think it was Paramount, where I was doing shows for a while until the shutdown. And so I haven't been down there working since before the shutdown. So it's been a minute.
Gotcha.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'd love to keep my eye out because I'm a big fan of solo work and all sorts of theater. So,
speaking of your solo work, this is a critically acclaimed one-man show that's still running, right?
Well, actually, I brought it back. Is what they did. My very first one, Not a Genuine Black Man.
Yeah.
It was the very first show opened in 2004 that went on to become the longest running solo show in San Francisco theatrical history, and we went off Broadway, and that one I did in LA for a while, and Rob Reiner was working with me to develop it for television. And I realized about 8 months ago that this was the 20th anniversary of its debut. I've done 5, so I did Genuine for like I think 6 years or 7 years or something. And I noticed 2 things were happening. That this year was this month rather was the 20th anniversary, as well as my 1,000th performance was coming up. So I brought it back for just 4 special performances at the Marsh in San Francisco, where it started. We had the 1,000th show last Saturday night, which was just great. It was a packed crowd, and it was just so nice to be back in that space and doing the show where it all started. So I've got a new one called Grandma and Me, an ode to single parents that ran for about a little over a year. Opened in October of 22, and we just won the award for outstanding solo performance of 2023 by Broadway World. So I'm all over the place with these, but I've got 2 more performances in January. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank
Brian,
you.
I really admire that skill set, and just to be able to sustain a show, like create a show, and then as a performer, hold an audience wrapped for an extended period. Do you work with a director, or do you direct your own work as well?
Oh no, I work with a director, or it would just be 2 hours of really good intentions. That's what it would be. David Ford is my director and collaborator on all of my shows. The best thing that David does is it's not so much what's on the stage, but it's what he keeps me from putting on the stage is really what his biggest gift is.
Sure.
No, we don't do that. That won't work, or So, but it's I never thought this was a lark. I did stand up for 20 years. I had always wanted to try a one-man show, and I got this advice from Carl Reiner to find the piece of ground that I alone stood on, and right from there. And so I was an anonymous letter I got from a KGO listener saying that I wasn't a genuine black man. And I thought about, okay, why do people say that to me sometimes? And it's because I grew up in San Leandro, California, next to Oakland, at a time when it was, depending on whose numbers you believe, between 95 and 99% white in my family. So I decided I was going to write about what it was like to be different. And so I hooked up with David. It was a lark. I was going to do it for 6 weeks. I was booked at the Improv in San Jose at the end of 6 weeks, and critics came and liked it, and the people came and kept coming. And so it completely shifted my career. I still do some stand-up here and there, but mostly I do this. And the great part about this is I can still do stand-up, but I can, there are portions of it that are stand-up and are comedy, but I can also go to do drama, and it doesn't have to just be laugh, 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 laugh. And the greatest part about it is that the drama makes the comedy funnier because it's a release for the audience, and the comedy makes the drama hit harder. So it's a real interesting way to work.
And you said the piece of ground that you stand on, and I love that. But at the same time, it's universal, because the idea of people are not a monolith. People contain multitudes, and you can't just put one type of person, whatever your ethnicity, gender, etc., in a box like that. So I really I haven't seen it, but just I love that through line and that theme. That's beautiful.
Thank you, and you encapsulate it perfectly. That's exactly it. Nobody has the right to determine who you are but you. And what's interesting is I found when I did the play, and I subsequently wrote a book based on the play, I found out that this goes on with every culture, that there are Asians who consider other Asians to be too white, so they call them bananas, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. Latinos, they will call them coconuts. You're white on the inside, but brown on the outside. And it's who are these race police people? They get to decide what is authentic and who is not.
I'll tell you who one race police person is. Trump. I'm a Jew, and he said, if you're a Jew and you don't vote for me, you're not a real Jew. I'm like, what? Anyway.
I think it's completely offensive. It's a way to put people down and take away from their accomplishments. You heard during Barack Obama's administration, he's not a real black man. He's not, he might look black, but he's not really black. right? It's the same thing with that being said to you. And it's a way to kind of lessen your accomplishments by saying, oh, he's not really black. No.
And most of it comes from, that letter came from someone who self-identified in the letter as being African American. So most of that stuff comes from within your own race. Going like you're talking about being what Trump said about not being Jewish if you didn't vote for him. When I wrote the book based on that play, I was at an author's luncheon, and Mike Wallace, the great Mike Wallace, had a book that was out. And mine hadn't come out yet. And so I was seated next to him and we were talking, and he asked what my book was about. And I told him, and he laughed, and he goes, you know what? I get that. And I go, really? He said, yeah. He goes, anytime I do any story that takes Israel to the woodshed for anything, I will get hundreds of letters at 60 Minutes from people saying, you're not a real Jew, because no real Jew would ever criticize Israel under any circumstances. Wow. So it happens in every culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That resonates. It really does.
Speaking of your book, let's talk about it. This is really interesting. And the premise, I mean, I wonder if it came from a place of your personal outrage. The book is called Outraged, and you could tell us what it's about too, but it kind of starts with the outrage about police officers being able to shoot black men or black African Americans in general, right? It doesn't have to be a man, but usually is, and not facing any repercussions, and the outrage that stems from that. Did that kind of start from a place where it was your own personal outrage, and then you kind of got creative with that storyline, or how did that come to be?
I'll tell you something really funny about the title. I wrote this during the pandemic, and really what the impetus for this was boredom. I always wanted to
good catalyst.
I'd always want to write a thriller, always. And I was just bored. I shows I was supposed to be performing the Grandma on Me, and that got pushed back, and I'm bored. So I would get up every morning, and I had this idea because we had here. I still live in San Leandro, and man in the parking lot of Walmart who was mentally ill. Who needed mental help, as opposed to law enforcement should not have been involved in this. And so I thought about what happens when police officers do this, and what do their families go through in the aftermath, and what do the families of the victims go through in the aftermath and of one of those tragedies. And so that's where the whole idea came from. It is and my protagonist is named Topher Davis, and he's a TV investigative reporter in San Francisco, African American, and his sister is named Lynn Sloan, and I took the name from a mutual friend of ours.
Awesome.
I said, I go, guess what? I'm using your name in my book. And she's a SFPD homicide, and somebody is committing murders against police officers who have not been punished for doing this. And so their job is to try to figure out who's doing it. So my original working title for this, the entire time that I was writing this book, and and my agent was looking at it, we were thinking about starting to send it around, was what usually happens to police officers in this case is they get put on administrative leave. Mm-hmm. So the original title for that book was Administrative Leave. That's what it was called. And
which wouldn't have been bad.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But what they said was, with the feedback we got from publishers we submitted to was, it doesn't sound like a crime novel. Administrative leave, people look at it and it doesn't sound like a crime novel. So what does? Right. So it was my agent who came up with the title Outraged. And I thought, I like that. Yeah. So that's where it came from. I didn't title it, but my title was, look in my computer and the file says Administrative Leave.
Is it a completely different process from writing a play to writing a novel, or is there a lot of overlap?
It's not completely different. In terms of the way that I work is I have a quota every day. Best book I ever read about writing was Stephen King's book On Writing.
Yes.
This was the first book that he wrote after getting, you read it? First book that he wrote after getting hit by a van. And the first half of it is his autobiography as a writer, how he started as a kid and up to selling carry and so forth. And the second part is primer about how to write and how not to use adverbs and things like that. And he said you should write 1,000 words a day. So when I'm writing prose, like, something like a book, and I've done a couple of them, I do 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. And you want between 60 and 80,000 words is the sweet spot. If I'm writing a script, for example, like the script version of this, I'll write five pages a day, just 5 script pages a day, because it's not as many words. What's different though about writing a crime novel, I found, and I studied it. I really read tons. I've been reading them for years, and I really started to study how they work. Is that after you're done with the first draft, you know what's going to happen. Okay, because you really don't. I really don't know always what's going to happen when I start. I know, and the reason I say I'm talking about this as multiples because they like this one so much they asked for a second one. And
this is
the
great.
second one
Amazing.
will come out April of next year. It's already written. They've already got it. And they sent me the cover yesterday, which is great. And the second one is called Shadows of Justice. And what the thing is with these books is I want to do social commentary about race. So the first one is about the shootings. What Shadows of Justice is about is the disparity in attention and media coverage and police attention between when a white woman goes missing and when a woman of color goes missing. Mm-hmm. So I want these books. They have the thriller element. They've got the mystery element to it, and solving the crime and who did it. But I want them to be about something. So, but the fun part about it is that by the end, I start with knowing who did it and why. That's what you have to know: who committed the crime and why. So by the time I get to the end, then I can go back and drop in clues. Earlier, because I know what's going to end, so I can how it's going to end. So that's a different thing, a different element as opposed to writing plays.
You're really dealing with fascinating didactic material here, Brian. And I'm wondering, as an author and just as a human being, how difficult is it to separate the emotion and the power? Because, I am newsflash, I'm not African American, but some of these situations have me roiling. Just like I think about Tamir Rice, he was playing with a toy gun in the park, and I used to play with toy guns as a kid, and I'm like, I see myself and just the injustice. How hard is it to separate the emotion and the power of that with, I'm an artist and a creative storyteller?
It's cathartic, really.
Mm-hmm.
Where the emotion, you'll see the emotion in me most when I'm performing. If I'm performing on stage, you'll see the emotion. In terms of writing like this, I step back into the role of commentator, where I'm looking at it and I am giving commentary on, there's a whole back and forth between Topher and his sister Lynn. Again, he's a reporter, she's a cop, mm-hmm. And there's a whole back and forth about how hard it is to get rid of a bad officer and why it's unfair to blame all officers for the actions of a few bad apples or those who aren't properly trained or whatnot. And that's something that, if you and I were having that conversation, I could really heat about. But I was able to step back. I show both sides of the argument. I put it out of the mouths of the characters, and I can disassociate myself somewhat. Now, if I were doing this as a stage piece, you would see more, because it would come through as appropriate. As the actor in me would come out, and
mm-hmm.
the emotion would come out as appropriate.
I have to say I'm a little offended, honestly, that you picked Lynn Sloan's name over mine. I don't even know, I don't know how to feel about that, Brian Copeland.
Well, I'm thinking about the next book, and the next book will be the Kim McAllister story.
Oh, is that will be out? Okay, well, I don't know. Did you ever in your life, did you know you had novels sitting in there? Or did they you said it was boredom during the pandemic, but did you ever think in this lifetime you'd be a novelist like this? This is cool.
Well, I'll tell you, I decided that I wanted to do this back in 2000. I went on like a personal retreat. I was going through a divorce and all this other personal stuff was going on. So I went to this place in San Diego where you spend 2 weeks eating raw food and drinking wheatgrass juice.
How very new agey of you.
Which was just disgusting.
Were there any crystals?
Basically, that kind of, you named it, that kind of place. And so I made up a list of all the, I had a lot of time to think. So I made up a list of all the things that I knew that I wanted to do. And I called it my someday list. Today they call it a bucket list, but that phrase, and it was just funny because I ended up being in that movie. But that phrase, most people don't know, was invented by the screenwriter of that movie. The phrase bucket list was not in the vernacular. The screenwriter made it up. So I made up what I call my someday list, and on it was to do a one-man show. On it was to do a crime fiction book, because I've loved that stuff since reading the Hardy Boys as a kid. And then in high school I shifted to Perry Mason books, and read them all. And so my first book ended up being based on the one-man play. I thought they would be a crime novel, and I never got around to it but I knew that I'd write. I mean, I've been a writer since. I had my first column in the weekly throwaway paper. I had a column when I was 12. They gave me 200 words a week. I could write about whatever I wanted. I didn't get paid, but I got 200 words a week to write about whatever I wanted. And, I found the first one, and I'm just looking at it. You shake your head, you wince, and I think, okay, give myself a break. Yeah, you were 12. You were 12.
But you had a voice at 12. It's important because you got used to using your voice, right? You had a voice at 12. You had an opinion at 12. You were forced to think about things and put that on paper. So that's huge. A lot of people don't have that outlet. And then you come to KGO. You have this another outlet where you can express yourself. And now you're still doing talk shows and other shows on YouTube, correct? Yeah. Well, actually, I've got a podcast called Copeland's Corner. And I took a segment from my radio show that I did for KGO called Headliners on the Headlines. And what it is I get a group of 3 comics every week, and we spend an hour talking about the news of the week. And sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's funny. Hal, as I'm sure comics are, people don't realize, but comics are some of the smartest people in the world. We have to be, because of the fact that we read everything and study the universe to write comic. So some people like comics. What do they know about current events? Everything. Quite frankly, everything, because we have to. So what I have a podcast called Copeland's Corner. We've done 179 of them. And again, then that started right before the shutdown. And then we were doing it in person the first time, 2 or 3 before the shutdown. Then we shifted it to YouTube. And we started shifted it rather to Zoom, and we started doing it on YouTube, as well as having an audio version of it. I think we've done about 12 shows that you can get on YouTube right now. So you have a choice; you can get it wherever you get your podcast and listen to it, or you can watch it.
That's so cool. Hey, Brian, just out of curiosity, what else you got on that Sunday list? What's left? What's left for you?
I think everything, just about everything. It was to make be in a major motion picture was something that was on it, and then I ended up, because I'm not a genuine black man. That's how I ended up meeting. It was Carl Reiner, who was a guest on my KGO show, who really set me in motion to write that story. And then
that is so cool. A legend.
Oh, absolute legend. And he loved what it was that he had me send him a tape of the show. I sent it to him. He loved it so much he gave it to Rob, and Rob decided he wanted to develop it. So I ended up in the bucket list, although my scenes mostly got cut. And I just 2 weeks ago I did a part in Spinal Tap 2.
Wow!
We shot in New Orleans. So that was on my list. So I've been in 3. I've been in the Bucket List, Spinal Tap 2, and the second Venom, the last Venom movie. I was in. I played a reporter.
Right on. Brian, I think you got to get a little out of the box here as far as your bucket list, and maybe like visit Antarctica or something like that.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not climbing mountains. I'm not doing any of that stuff.
I thought Walter's comment was interesting. He says comics are the modern day philosophers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Would you agree with that, Hal?
Absolutely, because you take either some deep thoughts or some just powerful information, and you wrap a laugh around it, and it's like putting the medicine in the ice cream. You're giving people, you're making people think, and laughter is a conduit for that. Like laughter, it disarms you, and comedy. And also, if you look at horror movies also have some big picture ideas that are buried within the jump scares and, the slasher and everything. Oh, what is it trying to say? I think that's why I like someone like Jordan Peele, or there are some other people who have moved from comedy to horror. Like, I think those are two avenues where you can explore deeper material. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with that about comics being philosophers.
I do too, because that's and you nailed it. You hit it right on the head. And I could get in your face and do and give you a 5-minute or 10-minute diatribe about why assault weapons should be illegal, or I could write a 10-minute piece that's entertaining, that makes you laugh and make the same point. And so, which one are you going to listen to? Which one is going to resonate with you? Which one are you going to immediately just tune out and say, I don't need to hear your diatribe?
Well, and that's why
the laughter will disarm people. And then maybe you can talk about disarming people.
That's pretty good. That's why they say most people get their news from the Daily Show, right? That's why it was so popular, and why most people got their news from there, because yes, it was comedy, but it was also something completely different. It was also real stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then actually they still do. They find that a lot of millennials and Gen Zers, that's what they get from the Daily Show and from John Oliver, who I think is brilliant. I just started watching John Oliver, and Bill Maher is turned into the guy who's yelling, "Get off my lawn!"
A little bit.
He's turned into the "Get off my grass" guy. There was always that guy in the neighborhood where if you kicked your ball over the fence in his yard, he kept it. That's Bill Maher right now.
Yeah, he's saying get off my grass, and also get off my grass.
Brian Copeland, what an absolute pleasure to have you on the Mark Thompson Show. I've been trying for a while, but I didn't give you enough notice. This time I did, and I'm so glad that you came on.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I want to mention that Outraged is available everywhere. It's at every bookstore, Amazon, of course, but also at places like Walmart and Target. Have you made it once you hit Target. That's
Have you made it to Costco, though? I mean, that's really...
No.
Yeah, can people buy your book in bulk?
I'm going to spend Saturday going on a tour of stores to see who's got it, and I'm going to hit Costco. We have the actual... what I wanted to mention is we have the launch of the book at Book Passage in Corte Madera on Sunday at 4:00, and Michael Krasny, another KGO alum, is going to interview me, and there will be refreshments. There'll be food, so come for the food.
Awesome. No, that's great. So that's at 4:00 at Book Passage in Corte Madera on Sunday?
On Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Okay, come on perfect.
I'll sign your book for you.
I'd love it. Well, I'm not going to have a copy of Outraged unless it's signed. I mean, come on.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Congratulations on the book. Congratulations on everything. There is a link in the show description if you are looking to find out more about the book. There's a link there with a place where you can purchase it, but apparently it's available for sale everywhere. So you probably didn't need my little link after all.
What?
Thanks, Brian. Have a great rest of your day.
Brian,
nice meeting you, Hal. Thanks for having me.
You too.
Bye, Brian Copeland. Outraged, the name of the book, apparently for sale everywhere. So this is good.
What rock have I been living under? I love that guy.
I know. He's cool, right?
Yeah, just, a Renaissance man. And I look forward to exploring more of his oeuvre.
Well, now that you've met him, you'll probably see him all over the place, right? That's the way it goes.
Absolutely. And I love the Reiner connection. Carl Reiner directed one of my favorite comedies of all time, among other things, The Jerk, starring Steve Martin, which is just sophomoric and delightful. And he's comedy royalty. So if he gets the Reiner seal of approval, I'm in.
You know what's interesting is how many people that are in comedy doing stand-up are also writers, because you would think, someone like me would think, that that comedy just comes out quickly, right? It's just part of who you are in normal conversation, and that there's a different process to have to write it down and make something funny that's funny over and over again and not just in the moment.
Right.
That's something funny on paper that will stand the test of time, that every time you read it or perform it, it has to be funny. So I don't know, for some reason for me, there's a separation there, but I guess there isn't.
There can be. There are improv comedians who simply stick to that. I have a lot of friends in the world, and I teach at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, the UCB, which has theaters in New York and LA. And, sometimes there are improvisers who will get the suggestion from the audience. They'll get up on stage and they'll come up with a scene off the top of their head, and it's energized and they act it out. And but then they don't really write. But
Right.
then you have a lot of writers who, they make it look easy. They make it look just like, boom, I'm 23 doing this off the cuff. But they sit there, they go back to the lab with their pen and their pad, or they get on the laptop, and they grind away. And a lot of the stuff that you see that looks off the cuff on stage, they go to open mics, and open mics can be dark, desolate places, Kim, because you have other jaded comedians just waiting for their turn to get up on stage who are like, yeah, that was funny. Yeah, that wasn't funny.
You would think it would be a supportive atmosphere. No, not so much.
Like, once in a while, but a lot of time is like, all right, when is it my turn?
So
but
we're
then
about to...
if you get a laugh,
it's good.
That's a well-earned laugh.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have to get to David Katz and talk politics and law. Before we do, I wanted to ask you this question, not to put you on the spot, but do you have a favorite line from a comedy, from a comedy movie? Is there a favorite line that pops out at you? One that you heard that you're like, oh, now I understand why this is my calling.
A favorite line to quote from comedy, I would say the entire movie Airplane. Okay. From, do you like gladiator movies? What's your vector, Victor? Roger, Roger. It's like, they're so... Airplane is one of the most quotable movies of all time. You have the man who went from drama to comedy and had a whole new career open up from Leslie Nielsen and the entire cast. I think that movie, especially seeing it as a very young person, just really blew my mind, and it showed me. I love that.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with David Katz, former federal prosecutor, because there is a lot to talk about today. Albert, that's your cue. There you go.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I misspoke. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Why are you yelling?
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this?
We could try ignoring it, sir.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
There's never been anything like this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America. The end.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Sayonara, sucker.
You know what, pal? You created havoc and chaos.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
The Mark Thompson Show, without Mark Thompson, but with Hal Rudnick today. Yay! Yay!
Thanks again for having me. I'm having a blast.
Yeah.
And Kim, I would be nothing without you. Thank you for your guidance and
it's
for
awesome.
putting up
And
with my nonsense.
I'm just excited that I get to have you back again tomorrow. So, yay. The next guest on the Mark Thompson Show we know and love and are so lucky to have. David Katz, former federal prosecutor, now a defense attorney. And every time I see another Trump headline pop up, like today, during the break, just looking up, what's the latest with the Trump trial, right? I'm thinking, I gotta hear what David Katz has to say about this. David Katz, everybody, hello.
Hi, great to be with you guys.
Oh, you're in a different
Welcome.
spot today. You're not in your office.
I am. I'm in New York City.
Oh, wow. Are you doing big interviews? Are you going to go into the Trump trial? What are you up to?
I've actually been on camera and in studios. It's been really interesting. I mean, so much is going on, and it's fun to be here in New York City, where I'm from originally, although I'm a California lawyer. And as you know, I was an assistant U.S. attorney in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Here's a quick California lawyer joke for you. Why does New Jersey have the most toxic waste dumps and California have the most lawyers?
I give up.
New Jersey had first choice. Hey, a little lawyer humor.
Let's start this conversation with the headline on CNN today that the Supreme Court appears ready to reject Trump's claims of sweeping immunity. Is it too soon to say that, or does that what the indications are to you?
Well, my take from the hearing today, and I listened to a lot of it, and it was fascinating for people. They should definitely try to hear it if they can. But the Supreme Court, with 3 justices, picked by Trump and 3 other Republicans on it, just seems to be doing what is in Trump's best interest. People can draw their own conclusions, but they're not going to find absolute presidential immunity. And everybody said that. The joke on that, not as funny as yours, but the joke on that was, if that really were so, Biden could go up to Trump, and say, congratulations on your victory, and then shoot him. And then he'd have presidential immunity. So that horrible has been pretty much rejected by everybody, that you could commit an out and out crime, that you could, as Trump said, shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. And then remember the Department of Justice opinion that says, and it's just an opinion, but Mueller felt bound by it, that you cannot indict a sitting president. Well, the answer to that was, and in fact, McConnell said this in the Senate, in rejecting the attempt to find him guilty in the Senate, not guilty of a crime, but guilty in the impeachment sense, and remove him from office. And people said, well, he's already been removed from office because he lost the election. But the impact of that, Kim, would have been a disqualification under the Constitution for Trump to run again. I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but everyone should remember that none of the convictions in any of these cases would bar Trump from running for office, nor bar him from serving again as president. That disqualification by the Senate would have, and one of McConnell's arguments, and the Republicans who voted against impeaching in the Senate, was that convicting in the Senate of impeachment, in the impeachment sense, was that, well, he can always be tried in the courts. So I think the decision today, Kim, is going to be that he has to go back. He doesn't have absolute presidential immunity, but he has to go back to the district court and have her, Judge Chutkan there, decide what are the parameters of this presidential immunity. And unless the U.S. Supreme Court decision today says you don't have an interlocutory appeal of that issue, what's going to happen, I predict, is that Judge Chutkan will say these things alleged against Trump were not official acts. These were things that were not in the course and scope of his duty. He was not, in fact, making sure that the election was faithfully executed, and he just happened to be one of the contestants in it. What he was doing was beyond the course and scope. And then guess what? He'll say, no, it was covered by presidential immunity. Everything that I did that she said was not covered by presidential immunity. And guess what? He'll have another interlocutory appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, or at least to some higher court. The result being that the country is about to be frustrated in its desire to see Trump stand trial in Chutkan's court sometime before the election. If I'm wrong on that, and I will not be wrong on them saying there's no absolute presidential immunity. They will say there's no absolute presidential immunity. If they go on to say, okay, let's have the trial happen, I think Chutkan could fit the trial in. It would probably start in late summer, early fall, but I just don't see that happening. Let me add one more thing. There's a rule that some of your viewers may know that the Department of Justice does not bring charges that could affect the election within 60 days of the election. That was one of the criticisms of the FBI director. Remember Comey? When Comey started all this ruckus over Hillary Clinton, he's a Department of Justice official. That was within 60 days of the election. But Merrick Garland, I think the Department of Justice has either indicated, or all the commentators are pretty much in agreement, that 60-day rule would not apply. That would not block the Chutkan trial, because Trump asked for these delays, and that they ended up resulting in a trial going forward during the 60 days up until the election would not bar that trial from going forward.
I'm reading on CNN that the Supreme Court is signaling, as you say, Trump's January 6th trial could be delayed until after the election. Is that specifically because of all those appeals on what constitutes presidential immunity and whether or not it qualified, that it could be delayed?
Normally, there's something called the final judgment rule, which means you have to take all of your lumps when you're a criminal defendant. And after you're sentenced, you file one appeal in which you complain about the pretrial rulings, you complain about the things that happened at your trial, you complain about your sentencing. There are very, very few exceptions. One of them is double jeopardy, and one is this presidential immunity, which you have to be a former president to assert. So to say it doesn't come up often is an understatement. But in those, you're entitled to an interlocutory appeal. All that means is that you don't have to take all your lumps, that there are certain decisions that you're allowed to appeal immediately. And guess what? That stays your trial, because you argue, I have a right in this unusual circumstance not to stand trial. And so I need the remedy of an appeal and a ruling in my favor before I'm required to stand trial. The guy who says he's going to be subjected to double jeopardy says I am entitled to not have the jeopardy of a second trial. And the president keeps saying that. And my point, Kim, is that he'll be allowed, unless the Supreme Court remedies this in its decision, and I didn't see really much of a strong indication that they were going to, it goes back to Chutkan. Whatever Chutkan decides, Trump will say, I have presidential immunity as to that. She's wrong, and I have a right not to be subject to
Oh, no, I think...
Because what she just said is it presidential immunity? Well, it is within the limited presidential immunity. And so he'll have, we'll be seeing this appeal go forward either to the appeals courts, the D.C. Circuit, or to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll be seeing it 6 months, a year from now, and the trial will be stayed. Of course, we all know that if he becomes the president again, he'll order the Department of Justice just not to pursue the case any further. And if not, well, yes, he'll have a trial, but it'll be sometime in the future when I think he has an incentive to try to get all of this behind him once he's not a viable presidential candidate anymore.
I'm co-hosting with Hal Rudnick today. So Hal, I want you to know, anytime you want to jump in and ask a question, feel free to do it.
Absolutely. I'll take the ball. And David, you'd mentioned earlier talking about Robert Mueller and the Mueller report. I just wouldn't mind rewinding and getting your opinion on that. Do you think Mueller was remiss not being more emphatic about Trump's wrongdoing and kind of leaving it up to the reader of the report? Do you think he should have offered up a stronger opinion there?
I do. When he just deferred on that, I don't know if he trusted the good faith of Bill Barr because they'd been old friends or something like that. But in my opinion, Bill Barr did not act in good faith. And when, Mueller kind of just threw that whole question of the obstructions of justice by giving 11 examples of what would appear to be prosecutable obstructions of justice, he just kind of threw it up as a jump ball. And Barr jumped right on it in the next 3 days or so and said there's no obstruction. And that allowed Trump to run around and say no collusion, no obstruction, right? And that became kind of his mantra. And people sort of came to accept it by the constant repetition of it in the conservative media and by Trump. And then the other media reporting it because it was happening. And then by the time the report came out, and in my opinion, had damning evidence of various different obstructions of justice. One of the great ones, Hal, was that he had told this official to say something had happened, and then the official wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do Trump's bidding. And then Trump said, okay, well, I guess I won't fire you after all, but claim that I never told you to cover it up. And remember, that whole thing was laid out there. That was one of the, it's kind of ancient history by now. But since you asked about Mueller, it was very important. And at that time, Hal, I was doing a lot of commentary for CNN. And I was the legal expert, the DOJ official. And Mueller, being himself a former DOJ official, when he handled it as maladroitly as I think he did, it was like, what's wrong with you DOJ guys? It's like, I can't take the blame. I can't take the blame or the credit for anything that anybody from the DOJ has done. But it was just so disappointing to people because the report seemed to be so righteous and have so much evidence, including, remember this whole thing about, was it collusion, conspiracy, and all the people were running to the dictionary and collusion's not in the federal code. It was pretty clear that there was a showing of conspiracy, but all of it fell apart because Mueller was a Department of Justice official. He was not an independent counsel like Starr was. And so he ended up just saying that I'm bound by this opinion that a sitting president can't be indicted. And so then it went, as I mentioned before, the House did impeach him. But then at the Senate trial, you'll remember a few weeks after Trump actually, got voted out and left, they sort of acted like, well, what's the big deal? And on top of that, he could always face criminal charges on account of this. And so that second impeachment did not result in a ruling, which would have come right after finding him guilty of the impeachment in the Senate. Now, he says, well, that's double jeopardy. That's ridiculous, because I want to always emphasize that nothing about impeachment was criminal. So there's no double jeopardy on criminal charges. But had they had 67 of the senators, had 2/3 of the senators said that this is valid, these impeachment charges, and convicted him, then they would have, under the Constitution, had to go on to a clause that talks about disqualifying someone who's been impeached in conviction by the Senate. And that disqualification, no doubt about it, would have barred him from running or serving. But none of these four cases, and none of the civil cases, of course, bar him from running and serving.
Yeah, I appreciate you being able to rewind that for us. And, it just emphasizes the fact that, I don't know, in one person's opinion, this guy stinks. I mean, Trump is just one after another. So I appreciate you walking us down memory lane with that, David. Thank you.
Let's jump to the Trump trial underway right now. I don't know, you probably heard this. On Tuesday, the judge told one of the Trump attorneys he's in danger of losing credibility. How damaging is that for a lawyer? I don't think it happened in front of the jury, but still, that's pretty big.
That is a big deal. And I think that, we have to be kind of wary. I'm always trying to argue the rule of law. I'm always trying to think, what if the shoe were on the other foot? In fact, I was on a conservative, one of the large conservative nationwide stations yesterday. And the other guest was sort of reveling in the fact that, well, wait until Trump gets back into power. Watch all of these states do to Biden exactly what the New York DA is doing to Trump. I think they're very distinguishable situations. I think this is something Mark was always sensitive to, and I think you were too, Kim, when we talked about the Colorado decision, that what goes around comes around, and that while Colorado might bar Trump from the ballot, what about in some swing state that had sort of Republicans that might do it, but was purple, and they had kept Biden off the ballot in some big swing state? I guess Wisconsin maybe was one of those that came to mind. So I'm aware of the point that this, right-wing commentator was making, but I do think that, we do trust in the jury system, and so I think there's some reason to think that, we'll wait and see what the jury does. The things that are troubling to me, do you mind me ticking them off about the New York case?
Bring it.
Well, one is that it looks like the statute of limitations has run on the misdemeanor. So if they only find him guilty of the misdemeanor, they will have, I think they'll have to nullify that verdict, right? Because it's wrong under the law. The jury will have only found him guilty of the one that is time barred. They need to have the misdemeanor stick around, the falsification of documents, because there's a way to bump it up to a felony. So the DA in New York is kind of betting everything that the jury will come back unanimously on the bumped up felony. Now, they've been a little vague about what that bumped up felony would be. And so as a criminal defense attorney now, I don't like that. We bring things called a bill of particulars, because we say, look, if the indictment's not clear and the discovery is not very clear as to exactly what the government's theory is, we have a right to know what to defend. That's the whole idea of innocent until proven guilty. That's our rule of law. That's the presumption of innocence. Tell me exactly what you're being charged with so that I can defend it. That seems like the rule of law. That seems like fairness. People have speculated, and they shouldn't have to speculate, but they've speculated, what is this felony that's unlawful? One theory is that Trump knew he was violating federal campaign law. If they can prove that Trump knew beyond a reasonable doubt that he was violating campaign finance law, this is not an argument for the jury, but it's an argument in the court of public opinion. Then why did the federal government, not just under Barr and Trump, but why did the federal government under Merrick Garland and the Biden-picked U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, why did they not charge this as a federal crime? Now, there's lots of prudential reasons. They could have decided that they weren't going to do that. They could have said, if Trump isn't indicted and convicted of everything on January 6th, because they had that in the rearview mirror when they were making the decision in 2017 whether to indict Trump or not for this. But when you hear these revelations come out, like what Pecker is testifying to about the conspiracy, how it was all laid out, when you hear about how Alan Weisselberg, who was the CFO, when you hear about how he apparently wrote down exactly, we're going to commit the conspiracy this way. We always argued as prosecutors, don't expect to see a written roadmap of the conspiracy. Apparently, Weisselberg made out a written roadmap of the conspiracy. But the federal government knew all of that. They knew all of that, and they declined to proceed on these charges. So that gives, of course, a lot of room in the court of public opinion for Trump to keep saying, Edwards was indicted for something like this, and I wasn't. Even Biden's Justice Department didn't indict me for this. This is the political DA, with its 87% of the people in Manhattan voted for Biden, 13% for Trump. It plays into that argument. And the other thing is that they're going to try to prove that Trump knew that it was a violation of state campaign finance law. I assume that when he said to Michael Cohen, let's pay cash, he had all those interchanges with Michael Cohen, that Michael Cohen is going to testify. I told him, you're violating state campaign finance law. You're violating federal campaign finance law. And that is one reason why the credibility of Cohen probably will be important, because he's going to say that he told Trump that these were violations of both kinds of felony laws and that Trump absolutely knew it. And of course, if the jury believes that, then they get over that hump really easy.
Does that mean Michael Cohen is a bad lawyer? Should Michael Cohen have told Trump back in the whole, when we're going to pay off Stormy, listen, you got to use your own money. If you use your own money, we avoid all of this stuff. So
yeah, he wasn't a good consigliere there.
That's right. He should have known.
He wanted a Roy Cohn, and all they got was Michael Cohen.
There you go.
I don't know.
There's a couple of great jokes on this since I'm on with a professional comedian. I'm certainly not.
By the way, so I noticed the chat. They were like, "Oh, why are you making lawyer jokes with such an esteemed lawyer?" My brother's also a lawyer, for the record, so
it's
I
okay.
appreciate that. Yes.
My old friend and colleague, Adam Schiff from the U.S. Attorney's Office, he wanted to be a comedian, not a lawyer. So I'm sure Trump would have liked that a whole lot better if Adam Schiff had become a comedian, which was his real desire in life, and not an attorney, and not the great prosecutor who prosecuted him in the Senate on the first impeachment trial, the one involving Ukraine, Zelensky, and the famous perfect phone call that he got impeached for. But there's a couple of jokes with this. Not that I'm in competition with you, because
No, I love it.
You're always going to win the comedy prize. But Trump's reaction was, I finally paid one of my bills, and this is what I get.
That's pretty good.
Code every month from the Oval Office, from the White House. He dutifully sent that check with his signature on it to Michael Cohen, 2017, 2018. I paid one of my bills, and this is what I get. And of course, the other joke is that he wishes he just paid her in cash right now, right? He'd have paid her in cash. You can pay off a porn star to keep her, to not tell her story. And that's not a violation of the law. It's unseemly. It's immoral. The whole thing is tawdry. So I'm sure he's saying to himself, and I think he's going to say, the part of it that's going to be a real defense is he's going to say, I just wanted to pay her cash. I just wanted her to go away. She was extorting me. You know, that's what I figured. You know, meet her in a back alley, pay her money, and hope that she lives up to her promise to go away and stop blackmailing me. That's going to be his narrative. And that Michael Cohen said, no, I've got it all figured out. Don't pay her cash. I've got this thing all figured out. And Trump figured, well, he's a lawyer. He had it all figured out from a legal point of view, and that he was just following the advice of counsel. He had an opportunity, Hal and Kim, to make an advice of counsel defense. But if he had wanted to say that he really did rely on the advice of Michael Cohen or any other lawyers, that would have made him have to turn over discovery. If you're going to make that as an affirmative defense, you can't hide in the bushes and spring it on the prosecution at the last minute. You've got to give them a fair chance at the discovery on it. So what it means is you've got to turn over all the records. That was the last thing that Trump wanted to do, was to turn over all the records. Because this was not like a normal corporation that relies on advice of counsel. They say we're going to have this discharge of, and some environmental thing. Give us your opinion. How should we discharge it? What should we do? What abatement should we do? And they tell all the facts to the lawyer, and the lawyer comes up with a plan, and then they end up getting charged with an environmental violation. And they say, well, wait a second, I just relied on advice of counsel. Everything that the client told the lawyer, everything the lawyer said back, all of that becomes discoverable. There's no attorney-client privilege anymore, because your defense is that in good faith, I told the lawyer everything, and here's what the lawyer advised me. Trump didn't want to go that way. Yeah. He wants to just say, well, there were lots of lawyers around, kind of like you're crossing at a red light at the bar convention, and you see 2 or 3 lawyers crossing on the red light in front of you. So you figure, well, I'm not a lawyer, but they must know the law. They're crossing at the red light. The idea that lawyers are around violating the law doesn't mean that you're right in doing it. If you want to make an advice of counsel defense, you got to make one. You got to turn over the discovery. Trump didn't want to go that route. Can I mention one other thing, too? Because I'll forget it otherwise. Yeah. This whole presidential immunity that just got argued in the U.S. Supreme Court, Trump could have argued to the judge in New York City. He could have argued months ago, hey, I shouldn't be prosecuted in this case at all. This Stormy Daniels hush money election interference case in New York City. I shouldn't be prosecuted in this at all because I have presidential immunity. This was within my official acts. In fact, I wrote those checks in the White House. That was something I did as president. Yes, this was during the campaign, but some of it was while I was president. He didn't make that motion until the last minute. So the judge said, don't play me. Your lawyers knew this issue was out there. You argued it in the district court, the appellate court, in the U.S. Supreme Court. You didn't argue it to me until a couple of weeks before trial. No, there was a motion scheduled. You didn't file your motion on time. So when you hear Trump say some of these preposterous things that he said, like, well, why isn't my presidential immunity being recognized in the New York City trial? You didn't make the motion. When he says, how come I didn't have a jury trial with regard to that case where he got fined $500 million? I said $500 million. He didn't ask for a jury trial in that case. So that's why. Where was the jury? The jury wasn't there because you and your lawyers didn't ask for one, Donald.
So in the Trump trial, I love your Trump voice, by the way. In the Trump trial right now, in the hush money case, I guess today that David Pecker, the National Enquirer boss, is questioned about Stormy Daniels. So Stormy Daniels will probably take the stand at some point. Karen McDougal, another playmate person that apparently Trump had an affair with and paid off, will be taking the stand at some point. I've been thinking about who the Trump team could get to testify in the defense in this. And who do you put? I mean, as a defense attorney yourself, who do you put on the stand in this particular case?
Well, if it were somebody other than Trump, I could imagine myself being the defense attorney in a case like this, because it's white collar. The fact that he was trying to hush up the president. I mean, imagine if it were a senator or a Congress member or something like that. They find themselves in the same boat. Edwards found himself in this boat after he ran for president. You'll remember, of course, the scandal there, but that he misstated what the money was going for. It was to pay hush money to. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think that he had a mistress, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a child, and he wanted somebody else to say that, and so he paid all this money, and he didn't disclose properly what it was really being paid for. He got prosecuted by the federal government on these campaign charges that are very much like the federal equivalent of what the New York City DA's case is like. He had a hung jury, and then the Department of Justice figured not to retry that case. I don't know if we're going to talk about Weinstein at all, but your audience has to remember that these cases that are either hung juries or that get reversed on appeal, generally speaking, they go back for a retrial, which is a big deal. If you're like Harvey Weinstein serving a long prison sentence, you'd rather have a new trial than no action at all, and you just serve out your term in prison. So a new trial, of course, is a victory for the defendant, but it doesn't mean that justice is undone in some ways. It just means that you're going to have a new trial, and whatever error was made at the old trial that was not harmless, that affected the verdict, they're going to not make that error at the new trial, and you're going to throw the dice again. And let the chips fall where they may, which I think in Harvey Weinstein's case would be that he's going to be found guilty again in New York, in my opinion. But apparently in Edwards's case, they rethought about it and they decided not to pursue those cases. I've had hung juries, and that is normal, that especially if it's hung the defense's way. I don't know that Edwards's was, Kim, but if it's hung, I had one that was only 3 people voted to convict. That's a case that that's the case that the government, offer you something like probation or some kind of disposition that your client would live with if they don't drop it altogether.
David,
no, go ahead, Hal.
I was thinking about the Arizona election interference charges, and can you elaborate a little bit more on why Giuliani and Mark Meadows were charged there and not Trump?
Well, I had actually, I had suggested this with the Georgia case, that they should have started a lot earlier. And I think Arizona should have started a lot earlier. I don't know all the whys and wherefores, but I know that the election interference happened almost 4 years ago by now. And so you do have to ask yourself, as a fair-minded person, why did it take Georgia that long? And certainly, why did it take Arizona this long? It might be that there's a new attorney general and the old attorney general wasn't interested. And I certainly get that. But one of the ideas in these cases, Hal, is to go with like you do in a normal conspiracy. You don't charge like, Gotti or Trump right at the outset. You charge some underlings, some people that you think will flip, and then you have them, turn state's evidence, as we call it. They become cooperators against the higher up person that you want to get. So you get the capos, and the capos realize that they're facing prison and that their only alternative is to get a lower sentence.
I love this whole analogy that you're going with, by the way, and I love that you use Gotti and Trump in the same sentence. Please continue.
Well, people, I hope that that's not in people's minds a false equivalency, but it is, it's charged as racketeering in Atlanta. Sure. I think they sort of use that as a model. That's why I'm using it, because they go from the capo to the head of, and they charge a racketeering conspiracy, which Kim Kim knows, and the viewers know that I criticized that racketeering thing, especially for smaller players, because the smaller players have to sit through a racketeering trial, right, and hire a lawyer for a week of testimony against them, but they have to sit through and hire a lawyer for months of trial on the racketeering charges. I think for the smaller fish, that's really bad. But turning to the Arizona case, they've charged Meadows, they've charged Giuliani, they charged a fellow named Boris Epshteyn, who I don't think has been charged anywhere else. They've also charged some people who I have to imagine are cooperating with them, like Jenna Ellis, because we all saw her tearful apologia, right, and everything else. And she presumably is cooperating with them. It's also been reported that Ken Cheeseborough, now they're making me struggle with this guy's pronunciation again, because half the people say Cheeseborough, and I think the correct pronunciation is Chesbrough.
Right.
But he's the attorney from Wisconsin, who was actually a very reputable attorney and worked, I think, with his Harvard Law School professor on the Bush-Gore thing. And he really knew something about these issues. And I think he ended up making a deal in this case. I noticed that he was not charged in Arizona. But the Arizona case, Hal, is going to be a lot like the Georgia case. Basically, they're going to, except without Trump in it. And I think their thought is that, look, it's not pardonable because it's in state court. Even if Trump becomes the president again, he can't pardon, the people in this case. They will get those people, like in a normal case, convicted. They will get them to turn. Trump and his lawyers will argue, of course, you would have told on, St. Peter if it would have been something to get you a sentence reduction. That's what these people do. They invent stuff. They make stuff up. This is their get out of jail free card. Blame Trump. They'll argue all that. But the reality is you get someone like Meadows to describe day by day. You remember Chrissy, what's her last name? Chrissy she was the aide to Meadows. She described the things like in the car, Trump trying to grab the wheel, the fact that he knew that people had had guns, not machine guns, I'm sorry. They had guns that wouldn't have got them through the magnetometer. So he said at the rally at the Ellipse right before the January 6th insurrection, he said, well, don't check them. They're my people.
Yeah.
She had all of that inside stuff. Can you imagine what Meadows have? So they could say all day long, Trump's lawyers at the trial of Trump, with Meadows cooperating in Arizona and recounting all that kind of stuff, they could say, well, Meadows just wants his get out of jail free card. But there it is. And the jurors would say, no, I believe this. I don't believe he's just making this up. And then they would corroborate him. And, at some point, Giuliani gets it. Giuliani doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in prison. So Giuliani might very well turn. That's what happens to people under this intense, incredible pressure. I've seen it both as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, and I've seen the arguments on both sides. But you get the person, if they're credible to the jury, you prepare them. And that doesn't mean you coach them. You prepare them where you ask them questions like you think the defense attorney will ask them. And you get those people so that they just, does that make sense? Oh, really? You have a document that supports that? Well, where do we go find that document? You go subpoena the document that corroborates your witness, right? And you do the best that you can on both sides. And, from the prosecutor's point of view, and from the defense attorney's point of view. And, these cases have cooperators. You look at some of the great cases in American history. They had cooperators, and the jury said, you know what? On balance, I find the person guilty. I find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. Cassidy Hutchins, I think, is the name you're looking for. Yeah. So let's turn really quickly, because I know I'm over time on my David Katz allotment for this day. But the Supreme Court looking at this case out of Idaho relating to abortion and emergency care. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on with that?
There are apparently some states, this has to do with emergency health care. Mm-hmm. And so you're taken under a federal statute, talks about people who get taken to emergency rooms, and they're entitled to get the best and proper treatment. So for a woman, let's say, who is having, she's having a health problem, and they take her there, and the doctors decide, the best medical treatment for you is to have an abortion. In a state where you can only have an abortion if it's going to threaten the life of the mother, the argument goes, well, it's not threatening the life of the mother. Yes, she's having a bad pregnancy. So doctors are very worried that if they decide that this woman needs to have an abortion medically, from a medical point of view, but her life is not in danger yet. As Sotomayor asked, how about if her organ is in danger? And the attorney for Idaho said, no, that's what the statute says. If her organ is in danger, that's not enough to give her that necessary medical care. And so they actually have an incentive under these laws that are so anti-choice. They actually, in those states, to make the mother wait until her life really is in danger before they perform the abortion. So Idaho has ended up in this situation now where they're either doing that or they're airlifting. They're now airlifting like a woman a day to other states so they can have that emergency procedure that they need under the statute. And it's also been pointed out that those babies are going to be babies, or, from the, that the fetuses in those cases, the embryos, are not going to make it. They're not going to become children ever. But, and this goes back to the whole in vitro fertilization thing, that the true believers on anti-choice, they believe that life begins at conception. That was the problem with the IVF. And they're still pushing that. Arizona got pushback from those people. They finally passed a new statute, which is going to supersede that 1864 law. But they got pushback from the people who actually, take that tack. They held the House of the Arizona House back, Now it looks like it will be approved in the Arizona Senate. So that 1864 law, and the governor has said there in Arizona that she will sign the law. But this is a huge problem, this Idaho case right now. I think that sanity will prevail at the Supreme Court, and that they will say that, look, if it's medically necessary, it's medically necessary, and that federal law does supersede these very restrictive laws in states like Idaho. But we're going to have to wait and see. But I'm fairly confident that sanity will prevail, even though it's been before this U.S. Supreme Court that
Katz has spoken. I hope you're right, because it's so nonsensical to me to have a non-viable pregnancy anyway and then make a woman suffer. I don't know how anybody can say that that's a good idea.
Texas as well, where a woman who is carrying a stillborn child and has to deliver it through birth. What a nightmarish situation.
There's Katz. Absolutely. So you think even though they overturned Roe v. Wade, this particular Supreme Court will see the light in this case?
It's a balance, and it's ironic because Alito, in his lead opinion, overturning Roe v. Wade in Dobbs, said, "Oh well, this will leave it up to the states." But for an issue that they were going to leave up to the states, it sure seems to be arriving in the U.S. Supreme Court a lot. Mm-hmm. But I just think that they don't have the votes. I think that this federal statute will be interpreted in a way that there will be a sensible resolution in those cases, and that we won't have a woman losing an organ before she's near death, and then she finally, as you say, gets an abortion. It's a medical procedure then that the life of this, you see, the idea of the statute, just to one more second on it, is that they're supposed to give the best care, not just to the mother, but to the unborn child. Mm-hmm. The statute meant in a situation where the woman is actually giving birth to what appears to be a viable baby. And they need to think about not just the mother, but also that baby that's in the process of being born. They were not talking about this kind of case or looking out for the health of the embryo by making sure it got born. I think Alito asked a question like, well, isn't it catastrophic for the embryo? I just don't think that I think they're going to have a decision that takes into account what the statute had in mind, that there must be concern about the baby that's actually being born, but not in this kind of situation. This is just cruel with it's not serving anything. Even if you believe, I think, in the sort of more anti-choice position, I think I just think the Supreme Court's not going to do something that's barbaric. That's how much optimism I have in them. They're not going to do something totally barbaric. I know people will write in and say what they did in Dobbs was totally barbaric.
I'm going to take your ray of sunshine, David Katz. Thank you for giving it to me today. I'll take all the positive I can get on this one.
And Hal, it was great meeting you. Such a pleasure. And Kim,
right back at you. And thank you for just regaling us with so much knowledge and so much perspective.
Thank you, David Katz. We'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye. David Katz, everybody. Love him.
Kim, you weren't lying.
I know.
I just there's so many facts and pieces of knowledge in that gentleman's brain.
I know. Wow. I know. He's so good. So good. All right. Well, because I want to make sure we get this in, I've been trying to do this Law and Disorder yesterday and today, and I haven't gotten it in. And there's so many good stories. So let's get right to it, Albert. How about a Law and Disorder?
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, I almost fell over yesterday, Hal, because I got an email from Mark Thompson with a link to a story from Fox News. So this story comes from Fox. Secret Service agent on Vice President Harris's detail removed from assignment after a physical fight while on duty. This happened on Monday while the officer was on duty. The fight, first reported by the New York Post and then confirmed to Fox News Digital. It happened at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland while Harris was at the Naval Observatory. It didn't delay her departure from the base, though. They call the incident a medical matter. When is a fight a medical matter? I don't know. They say they won't be commenting. But here's what they have to say about the case, that at 9 a.m., April 22nd, a U.S. Secret Service special agent supporting the vice president's departure from Joint Base Andrews began displaying behavior their colleagues found distressing. The agent removed from their assignment while medical personnel were summoned. The vice president was at the Naval Observatory when this incident happened, and there was no impact from her departure from the Joint Base Andrews. The U.S. Secret Service takes the safety and health of our employees very seriously. As this was a medical matter, we will not disclose any further details.
I would say crazy and does not make you feel safe. Because these are supposed to be the best and brightest who are watching our dignitaries, et cetera. But, I would say a fight becomes a medical matter if someone has like just a snap, a psychic break or something along those lines. So maybe a mental health matter there. But I wonder what it was. They showed up. Did somebody, was it a fight over the last donut?
I guess so. There's an agency called Real Clear Politics. They say the agent who had been acting erratically began punching the special agent in charge after getting on top of him. So there was a big fight is what happened.
With your iron rod.
Maybe.
No, wait a minute.
Maybe he took an edible and he didn't realize just how many milligrams it was.
Where are my weed smokers at?
There's another story. This one out of Southern California. You may have seen this a couple days ago. These vandals and thieves hit this business in Southern California, and they were caught on video. This is a San Gabriel Valley business. These vandals broke into their parking lot. By the way, some of the best
Asian food in the country you will find in the San Gabriel Valley. I love going there.
Okay.
Oh, love it. One of my favorite Vietnamese restaurant is there. Shout out Golden Deli.
Well, this is a case where these vandals break into the parking lot of the Pink Sponge Home Cleaning Service in Glendora in the early morning hours of April 20th. And there's surveillance footage of the break-in. And it shows them on the rooftop parking lot. They're wreaking havoc. One of them blasting off a fire extinguisher, another two twerking on the hood of one of the company's 25 bright pink fleet of Volkswagen Bugs. So they're out there twerking and doing whatever.
Do we have this footage, Albert?
There is footage. They said that the teens caused $25,000 in damage. They kicked in every headlight they could. They pulled windows down. They broke regulators. They carved on the hoods of cars. All of this. Here it is. So you can see the fire extinguishers going off. The twerking, I think, was a really lovely touch. One of the teens, 15 years old, now in custody with the break-in. There's also some gang symbols carved into some of these cars as well. So no real good. Well, maybe we got, you can see them damaging the vehicles there. I mean, wow.
Like, I want to know what was their bone to pick with this cleaning company?
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Yeah, I don't know. The problem.
I want to hire Pink Sponge now just to, donate to their cause.
Trust me, Pink Sponge needs it because according to the story, the co-founder of that company said their insurance claim on all of this was denied because they've been vandalized before. So because it's happened to them before, I guess maybe they should have taken more security precautions or whatever, but the insurance company said, we're not going to pay this. So there's
a big more than a Pink Sponge to clean up that mess.
Yes, absolutely.
Kim?
They have here comes is the twerking or is this? Yeah, there we have the twerking. Yeah, that's always nice. I mean, hey.
Making it rain. Now, Kim, you and I don't know each other very well, but may I ask you a personal question?
Please. Have
you ever twerked in your life?
I I might have attempted a twerk, but I don't necessarily know if that it was a successful execution.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've, and just, full disclosure.
Sure. Yeah.
I've attempted to twerk before, as a comedian and a sketch comedy performer.
There's never been anything like this.
Unexpected, but at this point in my career, expected circumstances. You got to embrace the idiocy sometimes.
The image is hideous.
Do you think that you pulled it off in your zeal to twerk? Did it work out for you?
Let me put it this way. I don't have a lot to twerk with. I don't. I've got a small butt.
Yeah. You don't have the junk in the trunk.
I don't have the junk in the trunk.
No.
So maybe I need to get a BBL. This conversation has taken a turn.
It's
Kim.
going
I'm sorry
somewhere.
about that.
I'm going to move to this story because I've been trying to get to this one. This is about Elaine Boozler, a comedian, Elaine Boozler.
Yes, just a trailblazing female comic of the 80s, a great comedian.
She's been called by Rolling Stone the first lady of stand-up.
Yes.
She got arrested. Why did she get arrested? Because she tried to go to a Dodgers game, and they require that you bring in, if you're going to have a bag, that it's clear so that you can see through it. But she has this cute purse looks like a baseball, right? It's like a white purse with like red leather stitching on it. But she tries to bring it into the game. She's trying to go to the Dodgers-Mets game on Sunday. She comes into the stadium with her new handbag shaped like a baseball. And the security guard's like, no, you can't bring that in here. It's not clear. You know the rules. No. And she puts up a stink about it. And she's like, I'm going to bring this in. And he's like, yeah, no, you're not getting in with that, as a matter of fact. And so it goes on and on and on. And she gets really belligerent and she gets arrested because of that. And then she puts out a video on YouTube about her experience regarding this entire thing. She said there's no disclaimer on her ticket regarding a clear bag policy, that she should have been let in. Let's take a listen.
Here are my wrists after being handcuffed for 2 hours at Dodger Stadium. That's right, I was arrested. Boozler claims it was all because of her baseball-themed purse that did not meet the stadium's clear bag policy. She says she was told she'd have to throw it away or take it back to her vehicle. I said, wow, the car, let's see, we paid $50 to park a mile away and it's 80 degrees and the tickets were $300 in the secondary market and nowhere did I see it say it has to be a clear bag. You should let me in. No terrorism. And I said, terrorism? I've sung the anthem here 5 times. I've been in the booth 50 times. I played in the Hollywood Stars game 10 times. Just let me in with the bag. No, you can't come in. And he said, you're not getting in. You're going to get arrested for trespassing if you don't leave. And he said, how can I be trespassing with a $300 ticket in my pocket? Anyway, I said, fine, arrest me. So they did. They arrested me. After spending 2 hours in handcuffs, Boozler was told that if she agreed to leave on her own, she would not be taken to jail. However, she claims the Dodgers told her they would still pursue charges. So far, no comment from the team.
Our thanks to KTLA for the footage. You can see the full video on YouTube, the Elaine Boozler, what the hell was going on? She has some pretty good jokes in there. You know what it smacks of, Hal, is...
What's that?
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
A little bit. It's not as bad as the Reese Witherspoon. If you ever saw, like, when she and her husband got pulled over and she literally dropped a, do you know who I am? But, I've been there, actually, Kim. I went to Dodger Stadium with my wife, and they have let me grab a piece of paper here. Like, you're allowed to bring in a bag.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big
literally
deal.
This size, like half. This is a folded piece of paper. It was literally half a piece of paper, the size. And my wife had a fanny pack that was slightly bigger than this. I had to walk, and Elaine Boozler was not lying. That parking lot is cavernous and huge. I had to walk my wife's bag back to the car. It was quite a walk of shame there and back. It was last thing you want to do. I want to get back. I want to get in my seat and have a beer and a hot dog.
And then you go back to the parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know the rules. I mean, you walked all the way back, put the bag in the car, what have you. It's not worth the fight. And when they tell you, she's like, they said they were going to arrest me, and she keeps going. I mean, at some point, you can't be belligerent. They're going to take you into custody. Is it worth it?
Yeah, and someone in the comments said, and I hate to say it because I love Elaine Boozler, and I think she does make a good point,
Right.
but when you push the issue like that, it does smack of a little privilege.
Yeah, I love that. I've done Hollywood Stars 10 times. Come on.
All right, God bless, but we've got a rule here, and we can't.
Right. I mean, thank you for your service on Hollywood Stars, ma'am. However, the Lady Beatrice with $5 super sticker, huge thank you, because we need all the help we can get to keep this show going. She said she sounds a lot like a Karen to me. Rules are rules. She shouldn't get special treatment just because she spent $300 for the ticket, an all ad, or was on Hollywood Stars.
Maybe they should have let her in if they let all the fans boozler her.
Oh, God. Crazy. And maybe part of me thinks she did it for publicity. Maybe hasn't been in the news for a while, wanted to pop back up. I don't know, because you have to know that you're going to get arrested and stuff's going to move forward.
I think every stadium now requires those clear bags. So it's not just a personal issue with her. It's literally every stadium now. Also, go Giants.
Oh, there you go. He had to go there, but
he did have to go.
Rivalry runs deep. One of the great rivalries in sports.
We might have a moment so we can do one more story, and that is the story out of Los Angeles where the mayor was targeted. I don't know if you saw this. This is Mayor Karen Bass. Prosecutors on Tuesday filing 2 felony charges against a convicted felon accused of breaking into the home of the official home of Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. She and her family were inside the home at the time. This man, his name is Ephraim Hunter. He's 29. He faces charges of first-degree residential burglary and vandalism. And police say Sunday morning he broke in to the historic Getty House in LA's Windsor Square neighborhood, shattering a glass door at the rear of the property. He was cut by the glass and left blood stains throughout the house. The damage estimated at $5,000 to $8,000. He was arrested at the scene at the home without incident, and they don't say if anyone else was hurt there. But how scary is that? I mean, there she is in the home with her family, and this crazy guy's breaking through the glass at the back door.
Yeah, and makes you wonder, did he know who he was targeting, or was he just trying to rob an affluent-looking home?
Well, there's a panic room in that home, and the break-in, I guess, forced the mayor to hide in this safe area, kind of like a panic room. The police are saying, Gascon is saying, the DA, we want to send a very clear message. The safety of the community is of paramount importance. We'll do everything we can to hold people accountable. So that Getty House is the official residence of the mayor of Los Angeles.
Wow, that is scary stuff.
Yeah.
Kim, by the way, I have anxiety disorder, so any room I'm in is a panic
room. Oh, that is Law and Disorder here on the Mark Thompson Show.
Good.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
We have come to the end of the road, Hal Rudnick.
Oh my goodness.
It goes by fast, doesn't it? I know.
Kim, thank you again. Like I would like be a hiker, like lost in the mountains without you. I appreciate your humor, your tolerance of me, and this was just a delight. And man, I had so much fun, like learning and talking to our guests. This was
we get to do it all again tomorrow. Tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show. Friday Fabulous Florida. That's going to be really fun with you, Hal. Michael Schur coming through to talk politics, a journalist, a political analyst. We love our Michael Schur. And then we have our Michael Snyder, also beloved, the Culture Blaster, talking movies and all things entertainment. That is tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show. Huge thank you to Albert for putting this together and for all the graphics and everything else and the pictures. Thank you, Albert, very much. Thanks, Hal, for being here.
We're going to Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll do it all again tomorrow, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.